Valley Church. Hope for those who have given up on church.
Hi folks, thanks for watching. We're into a series we're calling The Best Stuff Jesus Taught. And we're from Freedom Valley Church in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, just over the hill from your house. Love to hear from you. You could write me at g@freedomvalley.org. That'd be wonderful to hear from you in that way. Or if you want to write the church, write Freedom Valley Church, 3185 York Road, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Love to have you show up and visit here as well. If that works for you, that'd be wonderful. God bless you. Thanks for watching today. All right, folks, we are in Jesus' great teaching, The Best Stuff Jesus Taught, number 8, as he's dealing with the Sermon on the Mount, and we are in verse 38-42 today, as Jesus deals with the concept of revenge, or how to win over someone who's been hurt by you. I love this so much. And I love what Jesus teaches here in his determination to teach us how to win back people who were lost to us. This is key to life for us. I have a couple of announcements as we get started. First off, I want you to know that our Freedom House is in specific need right now. Many of you deal with our Freedom House. We have the opportunity to help men and women who are caught in various kinds of addictions or life-controlling habits or whatever to get free. They live at the Freedom House for a period of months while they pursue freedom in Christ and get involved in helping churches and helping this church and other churches. Many of you are involved with that. The Freedom House has a specific need right now with a car that needs a transmission. And so we're looking for about $1,500 in that regard, and just asking God to put it on somebody's heart or for somebody to have that desire. If that would be you, just write us here at the church at Freedom Valley Church, 3185 York Road, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, 17325. And just let us know if you can help. That would be wonderful, and I'd appreciate that so much. That'll take care of our need for the car at the Freedom House. I have a joke for you as you find Matthew chapter 5, verse 38, about a lady who went to the library to get a book. A few days later, she returns the book to the librarian. And at the counter, she says, "I don't know what's with this book. It's a very boring book. It had too many characters and too many numbers in it, so I'd like to return it." As she was walking away from the librarian stand, she heard the one librarian say to the other, "So here's the lady who took our phone book last week." So there you have your little phone book joke for the week. Go with me now to Matthew chapter 5, verse 38, as the Master unravels life and helps us to understand life in this particular way. Matthew chapter 5, verse 38. "You have heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek too. If you're sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat also. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Give to those who ask, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow." Now Jesus is dealing with, as we get into this progression, he's dealing with one of the tougher issues, and that is how to win back an offended brother. And that really is the context for what he's teaching here. We lose a lot of this in translation. Some of our earlier translations don't do this a lot of justice because they don't deal with the issue that Jesus is dealing with, which has to do with winning back a person that was lost to us due to conflict or trial or issue in life. And I believe that's what he's talking about. And he specifically mentions when he says, "I say, do not resist an evil person." Here he's dealing with how we win back someone who has set themselves against us and has a particular problem with us. And so he turns his attention to dealing with people, especially those who have their hearts set on evil toward us. Here he's teaching us how to deal with those whose hearts are hardened by life and have become unyielding and evil toward us. That's what he's dealing with, and what the context is that matters to him as he deals with the concept of revenge. How to deal with revenge. The context for revenge in the Old Testament, Jesus is saying, wasn't very well taught. He says in verse 38, you've heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. Here Jesus begins to deal with how to win back the person who has lost to you. I like Proverbs 18, verse 19, that says, an offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. That's what Jesus is dealing with here. He's dealing with how to win back the offended friend. Suppose you have somebody who's been horribly offended by something you did and is now exacting revenge on you. Here's what Jesus is dealing with when he says, you've heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. Jesus here is dealing with the whole spectrum of how you win back someone to yourself that was lost to you. He's saying, don't be the kind of person who adds up the wrong and who wishes evil on somebody who has done evil to you. What Jesus is dealing with is the Old Testament law, where Moses is quoted here, for example, in Deuteronomy 19:21, where it says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Jesus is saying he got this a little bit off. And what he's trying to do is teach us how that certain kinds of wrongs would be righted if you are the person in charge or you're the ruler. But Jesus here is dealing with, suppose it's just an ordinary person and they're hurt by you in some particular way. First thing he says is, instead of resisting them, invest in them and see what happens. Instead of resisting, invest. Jesus is teaching them here that the whole process of the eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, is something that perhaps a judge or an arbiter would have to bring down, but that's not his point at all. His point is, don't resist the evil person. You got to go with somebody whose heart is set on evil toward you, because it's not working to resist. Simply not working. He's saying if your situation isn't working, you might have a person whose heart is evil toward you. And now you got to find a different strategy to do what Proverbs 18:19 says, where it says you win back the offended brother. And you understand that to win back an offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. This is not going to be easy. And if you expect it to be easy, you'll miss the point. And you'll miss what somebody says, what Jesus said when he said, instead of resisting that person, learn to invest in them, give to them, be a giver toward them. Avoid any kind of revenge talk. This isn't a time where you're seeking revenge for somebody to come and take revenge from you. This is a time when you're trying to win over someone who was horribly hurt by you or maybe maligned in some way. And Jesus is saying it's a better thing to win back the offended brother and to let them love you. Now, in the Deuteronomy 19 passage that Jesus is quoting here from Moses, Deuteronomy 19:21, where Moses says, have no mercy, don't have any mercy. It's make it an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Here, Moses is just saying, listen, if you're a ruler, if you're in charge, and two people come to you, and there is a person who's offended and a person who did the offense. He said, turn a blind eye toward that situation and do not have any mercy. Because your job at that point is to try to make right what was wrong. And so what Jesus is saying is, listen, people, here's the deal. We are constantly people who have maligned someone else. We've constantly done the wrong thing. And the way to win back that kind of person is to understand that you're in the battle of your life. It's not going to be easy. So start investing in them. Start caring deeply about them. Start allowing your heart to care about what their heart cares about. And you'll have a whole different experience. This is about an evil person or someone who has set themselves on their own way, and they're out to get you. Your job is to win back the offended brother, and understand that winning back the offended brother can be harder than winning back a fortified city. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a piece of cake. You're going to have to do this carefully. For you to do it carefully is crucial to your life. For you to become somebody who is kind and is giving and is wonderful in this regard. That's what Jesus is saying. So start out by, instead of resisting, invest in them. Find some kindness to give them. Be a person who is kind toward them, and don't resist the evil person. That's the first thing he's saying, is just go with that attitude that you're not going to be the person who resists. Then he says in verse 39, he says, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you're sued in court and your shirt is taken away from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it for 2 miles. Here Jesus is saying, whatever you're asked to do in this regard, do double. Your understanding is that it is not going to be easy to win back the offended brother, or to be there for someone who is in trouble spiritually or emotionally or financially because of something you did. It's going to take some work. Take the work. Be willing to get to work and spend the time with somebody to win them back. And so he says, if somebody slaps you on the right cheek, offer them the other cheek. Say, come on. It's not so bad to be slapped as it is to miss an opportunity to win over a brother. If you're sued in court and your shirt is taken away, give your coat too. Big deal with the coat. Don't care so much about the stuff, because you're going to lose in the long run if you continue the battle. And if a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Here Jesus is just saying, hey, listen, I get that the Romans are here. This is now a Roman colony, Israel is. And you're going to have to live with that. It comes down to learning who moved your cheese. Maybe you heard of the great story. I love the little allegory, Who Moved My Cheese? A great little book, business book about how to adapt to change. And it's a story about 2 mice in a maze. One of them, well, let me just put it this way. The cheese is fed at the same place in the maze every day. And the 2 mice come and they get their cheese. And they eat their cheese and they happily go on with their life. But one day, the owner of the maze decides to feed the cheese at a different place. One of the mice lays down right where the cheese used to come and pouts and cries and can't get over that the cheese isn't there anymore. The other mouse happily runs off to find out where the cheese is now. And in a short time finds it. He comes back to tell the first mouse. He says, hey, come on, I found where the cheese is. First mouse doesn't care. He's too busy wallowing in what used to be. Some of us are like that. We are so into what is not happening anymore. We can't adapt to change. Jesus is saying, hey, change happens. Change happens. And sometimes you get slapped when you didn't deserve it. Sometimes you get slapped when you feel like it's not real and it shouldn't be happening. He says, come on, if you want to win back the offended brother, offer him the other cheek. What's the big deal? Allow the slap to be a little bit more because you're trying to win back the offended brother. And then he says, if a soldier demands you carry his gear a mile, carry it too. Come on, people. This is the simplest thing. To be able to begin winning back the offended brother is powerful in life because we don't have enough of friends. We don't have enough of allies. No matter who you are or what your life has been like, you don't have enough of friends and you don't have enough of allies in life. So take the minute to do double. Do more than is asked. And do double what's asked if possible, because You're trying to win back the offended brother, and that is not going to be easy. Then he says in verse 41, give to those who ask, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. Here Jesus is saying, listen, develop this kind of mentality in all of life, that if somebody asks something of you, you do your best to give it. Be aware that you at least are not turning away from someone who comes to you and wants to borrow. Be aware that you are involved in the moment and that you care. Let me ask you this question honestly. If you have a family member who's constantly in need and constantly asking, do you turn away? I tell you, this is a tremendous struggle for me. There are many times when I don't want to be present in a conversation. I don't want to be the guy answering the questions. I don't want to be the guy being asked for money. I don't want to be the guy who's being asked for extra. But Jesus is saying the least we can do is give when we're asked. Now, listen to what he doesn't say. He doesn't say give everything. We know many times when the actual lack in the kingdom of God became God's great answer. Remember when Peter and John were going to the temple to pray, and they saw a blind man who had been begging there for years. And the blind man just put out his hand. He asked them for some money, and Peter said, I don't have any silver or gold. All of a sudden, something caused Peter for it to dawn on him, and he said, but wait a minute. What you want, I have. Get up and walk. Reached out, helped the man to his feet. And the man was walking and leaping and praising God right there on the spot. And Peter said, it was Peter not turning away. It was him choosing to be present in the moment where somebody asks. Not to give them what they asked for, by the way. If Peter had money, chances are he'd just given money. He didn't. You know, sometimes I just love this a word from Craig Groeschel lately, pastor of LifeChurch.tv, where he was saying, Peter obviously answered the call of God when he didn't have what was asked for. God used his lack. God used his inability to give what was asked for, to give far more. If the man had asked for money and Peter had money, if Peter would just have given money, it would have been over in a few minutes. The situation probably wouldn't have made it into the history books. It probably wouldn't have made time and space. But here Jesus is just saying, just don't turn away. Be present. When somebody asks you, spend the time thinking and listening and being willing to invest in them. Be aware of who is asking and why. Be very present with people who wish to borrow. So if somebody wants to borrow from you, don't just turn them down. If they want to borrow, be aware. Give what you can. Do what you can. Offer what you can. Always being willing to give what you can, because if you're the person asking, you're aware that somebody may not have it all for their amount to be worthwhile, for it to be something from them that matters, for it to be a kindness from their heart that makes the big difference in your life. Someone is asking for anything, give it. Give what you can in that regard, because what you can give can be powerful and huge to them. If they wish to borrow, don't turn away. Jesus is just saying here, listen, don't turn away from those who want to borrow. He's saying, come on, keep your head engaged, keep your heart engaged, be willing to be there for someone who wants to borrow, be willing to be part of the equation and part of the solution, part of the answer. Always be there. Just be there for them. Don't turn away. Be present. Be available. Be ready to give in every single situation where somebody asks of you, that you are ready to give. And teach yourself not to just turn your back or turn your soul or not be there. You know, and I know, that we can do a lot with very, very little. Each of us can make a difference. And while God doesn't often invest in one of us the ability to make all the difference, He does invest in each one of us the ability to make some of it. And Jesus is just saying, don't turn away. Just be there. Be present. Be present. Be present. Just be present for those who want to borrow, because they want something from you that you have. Be willing to give it. Just be willing to give it. That's what Jesus is saying when He says, don't turn away. Just don't turn away. Just be there. I want to ask you, how many times have you turned away from someone you knew was going to ask? How many times have you disengaged someone who you thought was going to possibly confront you with a need? Jesus is just saying, I don't do that. I need all of these friends. I want to be part of all of their lives. So I'm going to try to be present in every situation, in every eventuality, in every kind of need. I want to be present and I want to be there. So I just want to ask you simply, as we go over each one of these, have you resisted an evil person? That's what He's talking about in the first place, where He says, instead of resisting, invest. Have you been willing to give double to win somebody back? That's what He's saying in the second part. And the last one, have you turned away from someone who asked you for something? That's the opportunity that He gives every single one of us, to invest in those who ask and to be there for them, giving what we can, whatever that is. Watch what He'll do to bless it.
I was raised between two very conflicting religions. One taught one thing, the other taught another. And they were so conflicting that I knew that it couldn't be true. How could it possibly be true that these two different religions are, preaching out of the same Bible, but nothing matched, nothing made sense. And it ultimately led me to become an atheist. I was a very proud, loud atheist. At times, I would mock people, Christians in particular. They just became an easy target. Not that I would do it all the time, it's just what you did. I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to worry about anybody. It was all for me. I was selfish. I felt guilty about everything all the time. Even if I had no involvement, I always had this feeling of guilt. The insecurities within myself, but I thought I was happy. I really thought that that's what happiness was, and I was wrong. I was so wrong. I have a friend who is very passionate about his faith, and when he would speak, the passion just intrigued me. At first I was kind of like, yeah, you're a little off, but the more he would talk, the more I wanted to know. I wanted to feel that passion. So he suggested a couple of times that, just whenever you're alone, say it out loud. If you're there, give me a sign. And there were a couple of times that I did. As awkward as it felt, I did it. Driving in my car, hey, if you're up there, show me something. I don't know if I expected the skies to open and him to reach his hand down, hey, here I am. Of course that didn't happen. There was one particular time that I had gone to visit some friends. I hadn't seen these people in forever. Decided to spend the night. We were going to have breakfast the next morning, and I woke up crying. My pillow was covered with tears. I'd been crying while I was sleeping. And I didn't know, what's wrong with me. I'm going crazy. What is going on? So I decided to go home. And on my way home, I asked again, if you're out there, give me a sign. And this time he gave me a sign. And although he didn't come reaching through the clouds, it was a huge billboard. Have you lost faith? And I was like, all right, I'll call you. I tried to call the number and it went to voicemail. got home and thought, I got to do something. I can't just sit here. I'm still crying. I don't know what's going on. And I decided at that time to call Freedom Valley. There were a couple of friends of mine on Facebook that I knew came here. So I tried to call and no answer. All day, no answer. Later that evening, I decided to message a friend of mine who is very open about her faith. That following Monday, I decided to try Freedom Valley again. And the first time I called, it rang forever. And when voicemail picks up, halfway through it cut off. And I was like, really, come on, give me something. Like, this isn't funny, I'm confused, I want some answers. So about 10 minutes later, I decided to call back again, and it was like a half a ring, and I hear this, hello? I was like, oh, it's God on the phone. And it turned out it was Lance. I told him who I was, and just asked him some questions, and he invited me to come to one of the services on the weekend. And I remember hearing something about Wednesday evenings here. And when I asked him about that, he informed me that he was like, oh, as a matter of fact, this Wednesday is the first of a 3-week session on Christianity 101, what it means to be a Christian. And I thought, what? This is more than a coincidence. This is a sign. This is something. And during that time, my friend had messaged me back, and she recommended that I read the book, The Case for Christ. So I downloaded it onto my phone, and in about 3.5 days between loading trucks at my job, I read this book. And at the end of it, there was no questions to be asked anymore. I knew that he's real, and I found truth. From the time that I have been saved until now, the changes in my family have just been unbelievable. There have been many ups and downs. This is all very new to my kids, to see their mom go from a complete atheist, to having no belief, to doing nothing but sitting at the dining room table and reading her devotionals every day and, trying to learn more about the Bible. For them to see me doing these things on a daily basis was all very new to them, and I'm sure a little scary. I think it's been an eye-opener for all of us. It's given me a purpose, to how I'm raising my children. When I look at my life now and knowing that I want to follow Jesus wholeheartedly, and do everything that I can to grow, it has given me more patience with my children. It allowed me to feel a love for people that I didn't feel before. I've heard a lot of people talk before about having a home church, and I never cared, and I never really understood, what do you mean a home church, This is my home. This has absolutely become my home. It's a family. It's not just, oh, I'm going to go to church. No, I'm going to see my family today.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate you being with me on the Best Stuff Jesus Taught as I work through some difficult material and some powerful insight he had about the human race and how we work. This one is about the relationships of people. And we're going to work through the relationships throughout this entire series. Love to have you with me. Love to hear from you. You could write me at g@freedomvalley.org or write the church, Freedom Valley Church, 3185 York Road, Pennsylvania, 17325. We would love to hear from you, whatever you got to say. Thanks for watching.